So this well casing is pretty close to the ground. It has one of the turtle style caps on it. There's a total of 6 bolts around here, including this one that's connected to the electrical conduit. This one takes a 3/8 wrench. You're going to have to figure out what your cap takes and get a wrench for it. I'm going to use this 9/16 wrench and a crescent wrench to take all these bolts out and then get the cap off. Okay, so here we are. It's maybe 2 or 3 minutes later. Got the cap off. You can see there's some bugs and spiders and things in there, which is pretty common. The wires that are going down to power your submersible pump, and then obviously, now I didn't have to remove all these bolts. I didn't realize it at the time, but the cap only came off with I think 5 bolts instead of all of them that I said. But anyway, there's a lot of different caps that are out there, so you're just going to have to take a look at yours and decide what's the best way to get it off. A lot of times the bolts are a little bit rusty. May require some WD-40 to get them off, and tap it out, and usually you won't have a lot of trouble getting that cap off. Anyway, as you can see, there's the wires here. Now stand up and look down. And you can see down the well. I mean, it's dark, you can't see very far down it, but this is the actual pipe for your water supply that's going into the home. Not always are you going to see that. There's different setups. I'll kind of explain that later in another video as far as the anatomy of a well. But this is a 6-inch casing, pretty typical for most homes. So now we need to find out whether it's be from the homeowner or I'm just going to have to depth check and see how far down this one goes. Okay, so I ran this high tensile wire down this particular well to try and find the depth. This piece of black tape right here represents the bottom, so that's where it maxed out. This is actually not a very deep well. And I've got, it seemed like right around, see there's another mark where we actually hit water because we could hear it. And I'm coming up, so I think I'm at about 20 feet to the surface of the water, but we don't want to put the pump at the water's surface because that's not where the freshest water is going to be. Ideally, you want to have your pump set, your hand pump set at the same depth that your submersible is if you can, or close to it at least, because that's going to give you the freshest water. These are all the pieces of pipe that we're going to have. I've got the red capped, this is the bottom drop pipe, and the other red capped one that has this sleeve and also another chunk of PVC on it, this is your top drop pipe. They're the same length as the center drop sections, so there's no difference there. But you'll notice if you take the red cap off and slip this off, there is a 1/16 inch hole drilled right here, and that is for weep purposes, so that the water can weep down the length of the pipe, the length of that last drop pipe, so that you don't freeze. If it weren't to weep down and you live in an area where it gets below freezing on a regular basis, your pump would freeze and crack. Okay, which you'd have to pull it out. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but you'd have to fix it. This section right here is the actual pump mechanism, and it has the rod right here with the pump component. I'll hold that still. The part that actually does the pumping right there, the piston. Okay, now be careful on all these rod pieces. They all have this pump rod or the drop rod in them. You want to be careful not to bend that. It's fairly durable and it is very strong, but if you actually kink it, it will cause problems. And right here is the top or the pump head, which will go on last, and we'll get to that in a minute. So we're going to go ahead and get this laid out. Okay, so when you open up your bag, in case I didn't explain it very well before, this is pretty much what you're going to have. There may be a little bit of difference, but you'll be able to get the idea. You're going to have a roll of Teflon tape. Every joint that you put together, which we'll show, needs to be Teflon taped. If you don't know how to do that, there's lots of videos on YouTube as how to do it. I'll do my best here to try and show you how as well. This is the stainless steel nipple that's going to be where the water comes out. So, and the nut here is going to jam against this, which is your hanger plate, and we'll see that later on. These are the handles that thread into the top of the pump. This is a thumb screw that actually threads into your hanger plate, like so. It's been threaded. It'll thread in there, and you'll see why we have that as well later on. These little spacers may or may not be needed when we do the hanger plate. Here's the hardware to hang the chain from, and the 2 spacer pieces, or excuse me, extension pieces for the lift pump rod. And that should be all that you have in your package. So the first thing we got to do is lay out our pieces just like we're going to assemble them. So I'm going to take the head and set it aside over here. And since when you're assembling the pump, you're going to start from the bottom. So you find your pump cylinder, which will look like this piece right here, and as I showed you before, and basically sit it right here by the pump head, especially on a short install like this. The next piece that's going to go in line there will be the bottom drop piece. So that's got the one black cap on the end and a red cap on the other, but not the sleeve like the top drop piece has. And you're going to lay it with the red cap toward that, just like that. Okay, the next piece, we're going to lay a center section out here, like so. Then the top drop piece, which is the one we showed you earlier that has the weep hole on it, and lay it up here. And then the pump head itself is going to go up here. Now, are you still filming? Yes. Okay, now we're going to actually start to assemble the pump. So start by taking off the cap, the red cap off here, and you'll see that it has a rod, except instead of it having female threads, this one's got male threads, which obviously we go to put those together. So you want to take and thread those together. And they should go easily by hand. If you've never threaded things before, I would suspect most of you have, but they should go together by hand pretty easily. Now these pliers I've got, they're just a small 5-inch locking plier. I bought these at Walmart. I think I paid $2 a piece for them. I think Harbor Freight has a similar set of these for $3 a piece. But if you have a pair of pliers, locking pliers work good. If you have a regular pair of pliers, it doesn't really matter. Just take and put those on that joint. Don't squeeze too hard, but don't worry about it. Just put them on nice and snug. And then give that joint about 1/4 of a turn just to snug it up, so it won't come undone. Okay, so it should look like that when you're done. Now, we're ready to put the PVC joint together. And this, like I was telling you, you need to wrap it with Teflon for 2 reasons. The Teflon will seal it, and it will also help the threads go together better. So you always start by wrapping Teflon in a clockwise motion like this, and it can be kind of tricky. Especially right now, it's about 25 degrees out here, and my hands are numb, so hopefully we can get this done. But you need to put at least 3 wraps. I wouldn't go many more than that, or else it will actually bind up. But about like that. Tear it off and then rub it over like that. So your joint should look about like that when you're done. Now you take, well, we got to get the other cap off the other end down here. So slip that black cap off so the rod has room. And then take the pump cylinder, take that bottom drop pipe, and just start threading them together. And this should go pretty easy. And so if you're trying to make sure you don't cross thread it, but it should go relatively easy till almost all your threads are gone. I've got maybe 1 thread left there. When you get to that point, stay right there. Take another set of pump pliers. You can use the other ones that you used for the center rod. I think I would recommend having an extra set just so you're not constantly, especially if you've got a long pump, so you're not constantly adjusting these pliers as you go down. So these 5-inch pliers will actually work on the PVC as well. They're big enough, they open big enough. But anyway, take your pump pliers, put them on there, and just finish tightening it up. Don't over tighten it, just go until all the threads are gone and it's good and snug. So your joint should look like that when you're done. Now, as we go down the rest of this, you'll notice it's exactly the same thing. My hands are cold. This has got the same thing as what we just saw, so you're going to connect that joint just the same way, all the way up here to here. Same exact thing, no difference. Just make sure that you leave the sleeve on. And then when we get up here, when we come back, I'll explain how you finish it off. So we've got it all assembled except for the top drop pipe put in. And I forgot to tell you something that is pretty important at this point. Right now, if I grab a hold of this pump and this rod, I can't push it down any further. It's bottomed out, which is what it should be. So you should have something similar to this when you reach the top drop pipe. Your lift rod should be similar in length to this when you see the end of it. But what you want to do at this point is pull this out until it bottoms out. You'll stop and you can't pull it any further, and then just lay it down. And you can see I've laid out the pipe, the top drop pipe, which has already been taped, Teflon taped. I've got it laying where it will actually be threaded into this drop section. Now if we come up here, this is the excuse me, this is the top drop section's lift rod, which you'll notice it's only about 36 inches long. I can't remember what the actual length on it is, but it's much shorter. All the other sections, their lift rods are the same length as the PVC. This one's shorter for a reason, because we actually have the head is going to make up the difference. So what you do is you take this rod and come and lay it up here where it's going to be threaded in, like so. Down close on that. Okay. And then come up to the top of the pump and see how much of your lift rod is extending above the last section, or this drop, the top drop section. Because if you'll look at your instructions, what you want to have at this point is this length from here, from the top of the pipe, okay, from the top of that last section of pipe, and here the difference needs to be roughly 6 inches. 7 inches is actually ideal, and if I really wanted to, this would be fine. As long as it's above 4 inches, it's fine. But I want to show you how to use these aluminum extensions. This is the 2-inch extension that's included in your pack. And you actually thread it in here, and you'll notice that once you thread it in, you're going to be at roughly 6.5 inches, which is perfect. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and I'll show you why you needed to do that. I've got the lift rod all threaded together. I've got the last the last top drop section installed. Make sure that PVC sleeve that I showed you earlier is installed just like that. It should be captured right there, and that's just so that when the weep hole starts to weep, you don't actually have a small stream of water spraying against the casing of your well. You don't want that, so make sure that's on there. Okay, so down on this end, right now, the rod, I cannot pull on it anymore, and that's how it should be. And if you'll notice, I can't pull it out anymore, rather, that we do have the 6.5 inches, which is right about where you want to be. And it will go down, but not any further than that. So now you take the pump head, the portion here with the fiberglass on it, and there's this 1 foot long section of PVC that's floating on there. And up here we also have the pump handle, which you want to unthread that at this point so that the center section, I guess I would call it, of the pump head is free floating on the fiberglass rod. And now you're going to take this and thread it in to connect the pump handle to the lift rod. And you just twist like this. Depending on the length of your pump, you may or may not be able to twist this portion of it. Because this is such a short pump, I can actually twist it this way. But you may have to twist the pump handle instead of the lift rod. Try and keep everything pretty straight and lined up as you're doing it. And then, just like before, tighten that joint up. Okay? So just give it about a quarter turn to tighten it so that it's good and snug. Then bring this section down and thread it on. You'll notice I put the Teflon tape on there already. Every joint should be Teflon taped. And tightened with the pliers. And because I'm going to take this apart in a minute, I'm actually not going to tighten this, but every joint should be tightened with the pliers and snugged up. Now at this point, make sure all your pieces are threaded together good. Then you take a hold of the pump head like this, and depending on the length of your pump, this is going to be easier or harder. If you have a 300-foot install, you may have to have somebody actually wiggle the pipe as you're doing this process, but you take a hold of the pump head or a hold of the fiberglass and just push it down, and then thread it on just like that. Okay, and that's it. You're ready to actually go down the well at this point. Hey, I lied, I actually forgot to put the discharge nipple on. So what you do is you have that nut threaded on to the nipple like that. One end of the nipple is threaded further than the other, and plus the discharge ends should be capped like this. Then you're going to take it and put it through the hanger plate like that. And for this install, I'm going to have this spacer. You'll have to look at yours. I'll tell you why in a minute. But you put that on there like that, and then just thread it in to that T. Pretty basic. And then take a pair of pliers and take a hold of take a pair of your pump pliers and just tighten that in. Not too tight. And actually, I should have. You want this to be facing down towards your pump, so you need to make sure that this is held in line like that, and then take and tighten it up just snug. That's really all you need, like that. So now we're ready to go down the well. Okay, one other thing, as you're getting ready to go down the well, it's a good idea to have a bucket of bleach water, you know, like probably 1 gallon of water to a tablespoon of bleach or something like that, just to disinfect the pipe as you're going down. I'm going to take this rag and just wipe the pipe down as it's being fed to me and as I'm feeding it down the well. It's a good idea to do. Whether it's absolutely necessary or not, I don't know, but it's probably best to do it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going down the well. Go up with it. Get up tight. Yep, now let me have it. And we just hit water. Okay. Alright, and just like that, now you'll notice that I tied a piece of 550 paracord onto just a pair of snips that I had here. The reason I did that was there's not much of a danger of this happening, but if you were to potentially let go of it and by some misfortune it went down the well, we'd like to have a way to recover it. So I tied this to it so that it couldn't go down past the paracord. It's up to you whether or not you do that, but there is a slight risk of it going down the well. So now at this point, I am not going to install this one in this well with the chain, but I want to show you what we had in mind. Is that if you take this chain that's hanging here, the thought process was that you could actually lift this off, go down your well with it, and you'll actually have to, depending on your well, you'll have to customize this. This particular well, I would probably have to get a shorter nipple than this in order to get it all the way down there. But the idea is that you would run this down, and we show you in the instructions how to do this. You'll drill a hole right here, wherever it makes sense in your casing, and use the hardware that was in the bag. So there's a 1/4-20 bolt in there and a nut, and you'd actually attach the chain on the inside of the well casing so that you can put your cap back on and you wouldn't even be able to tell that there's an emergency pump down your well. The idea being that when the emergency happens, you'd come out, remove your cap, and then pull your pump out, set it up here just like that on your well casing, just like so, and tighten up this thumb screw, which I'll do. This well actually doesn't really need it to be done, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here we go. Okay, just to give you a little bit more rigid. Now, you would install the PVC handles at this point. If you want to, they're not absolutely necessary. But install them like so. And unthread your handle like this until it's free from the nipple, and then start pumping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, I think I'm probably pulling up about maybe 5 pounds right now. This pump is for the deep well. Even I didn't know for sure how deep this well was going to be. So this is the cylinder that actually produces a little less volume. The bigger one, you can tell, is substantially more volume. But even at this one, depending on how fast you pump, puts out good volume, as you can see. Then when you're done, you just spin that on like that. It'll go on like so. Just keep it protected.